Good afternoon and welcome back to the Zig Zone, WBGU 88.1 show where we take you through everything going on in the world of Falcon athletics. And my goodness, could there not be more going on in Falcon athletics right now? I'm your host as always, Holden Ruck from the Falcon Media Sports Network, joined here by two fine analysts from the network as well. Henry Costco, first time on the show in a while. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, and good weekend for BGSU men's and women's soccer. Men's with a 3-1 victory over Bradley on Friday, and then the women had a record-breaking draw against Miami just a couple hours ago. We'll talk more about that later.
And to Henry's right, of course, Tyler Cavalis. How are we doing, Tyler?
I'm doing great. The biggest comeback in Bowling Green football history, an all-time win for the Ages against Toledo. A lot to unpack there.
Yeah, and honestly, I think we're going to just get right into it. I mean, football, 28-23, funny-looking final score, but a 28-23 win over the rival Toledo Rockets at home. A sold-out Dwight L. Perry Stadium, first since the college game day ranked matchup between Bowling Green and Northern Illinois in 2003.
Crazy to believe that none of those seasons in those runs in the early 2010s and stuff, that none of those were sold out. That talks to the momentum of the program, too. Just stuck out to me there.
First home win since the staggering upset in 2019. First win down 21-plus since 2004. A type of game in which Bowling Green was previously 0-75. They now moved to 1-75. That's the kind of win this is. And Tyler, you told me a little bit more about that stat, too.
Yeah, it was the first win that the Falcons have ever had when they were down by 20 or more points in program history. They had never done that. They did that on Saturday. The last time that they came back from a game by a close deficit, the previous record, it was 18 points, and that was back in 1973 against Toledo. So a little bit of repeated history there. But just an all-time classic on Saturday at the Doy. And I said this after the game, I don't think it's wrong to say the past 4 years of this rivalry have been the best 4-game stretch in the history of the Battle of I-75. The past 4 games have all been competitive. They've been pure entertainment. They've been classic, good football games. And it just is what you want when you think of a action game.
And I look at last year, a competitive game, but ultimately, a pretty convincing Bowling Green win in a matchup at Toledo in which the Falcons were the underdogs. And I look at that, that was the least close of these last 4 matchups by far. I mean, you think of the great D1 rivalries, you've got the Ohio State and Michigan game. You've got the Alabama and Auburn in the Iron Bowl. There's plenty more you could name. I mean, this is one of the greatest stretches of rivalry football that, D1 has seen. I don't think that's a crazy exaggeration.
No, and now, you mentioned it when we were off air before we went on, the rivalry's tied. Both teams now have the same exact number of wins. In this rivalry, there are a few ties to go along, but it has been super competitive between these teams the past 2 years, and Bowling Green now has won 3 of the past 4. When Scott Loeffler got here, Toledo dominated it for nearly a decade straight. Bowling Green's kind of turned the tables. They are now kind of the boogeyman for Toledo.
And we've talked plenty about this actual comeback that the Falcons have had, but we're going to hear a little bit from Coach Eddie George on the kind of adversity that they faced. So take a listen to this.
Coach, do you have an opening statement, or do you want to open up to questions?
I'm just really proud of our boys, how we handled adversity. We talk a lot about, guts, our ethos, having faith, built for the 4-4, built for the 4 minute of the fourth quarter. And I grind those kids, man, for moments like that, and it wasn't pretty. It was not pretty at all in the beginning, and you kind of think, man, are we in front of a sellout crowd, home crowd? Are we going to get boat raced here? But we settled down. We continued to believe. We stayed positive on the sidelines. And we had to overcome adversity. It's toughness through adversity. And I watched the team grow up today. I watched them evolve. I watched them come to life today. Because you gotta be able to win games like that. It wasn't pretty offensively, defensively. We couldn't figure it out in the first few quarters. But we settled down and we continued to chop wood and carry water, and we were able to chip away at it and find a way to win.
Find a way to win, and find a way to win the Falcons did. Again, that 28-23 victory. When the Falcons first got on the board, that first half, frankly, kind of a rough half of football. But when the Falcons first got on the board, putting those 7 points up, I was actually, right behind the Toledo bench at the time. And you could hear some of the guys on the bench, saying, oh, relax, turning back, throwing some jeers at the fans, the Bowling Green fans back there. And, trying to downplay it a little bit. But, seeing them get that, knowing they deferred, even though they didn't ultimately capitalize on that second half possession, you could feel the start of momentum just from finally getting on the board in that atmosphere. And, momentum, by far the predominant story of the second half, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think what you're referring to is that Cameron Petaway touchdown before the end of the first half. That's kind of adjusted screenplay, kind of a slip screen in the heart of the field where he took it for a phenomenal touchdown running through traffic. If they don't get that, I don't think they win this game. I don't think they have momentum going into the half. I don't think that offense, who knows if that offense really settles into a rhythm. That was a huge confidence booster for Lucian Anderson III, of just seeing something positive happen on offense with the ball thrown out of his hands, just to see it happen. Kind of like a basketball player saying, I'm having a tough day, go to the free throw line and see a shot get made. Just seeing it and visualizing it is huge, and they carried over that momentum into the second half, like you said. Didn't capitalize on the first possession, but boy, the defense just stifled Toledo. The Rockets had no answer, and the crowd got back into it. And it felt like Bowling Green really couldn't mess up on offense outside of the one throw by Lucian into double coverage.
And I do feel like that's a really important point to move on to as well, because going into this game, we had conversations on this show. We had conversations outside of this show. There were a lot of question marks about, the quarterback situation. Talks of potentially benching Drew Pine. Frankly, an ugly performance in the OU game.
I must say that I would say that 2 week stretch as well. 5 interceptions in 2 weeks was. We do that mailbag every week. Sean and I do. We got more questions about Drew Pine than anything because of those performances, and ultimately it was out of his hands that he did not play, which is I think what you're leading to there. Out of his hands. We don't know. We have a clip that we'll play at some point coming up here. Don't know how long he's going to be out. But it definitely, with the performance that Lucian had, which wasn't amazing, but it wasn't awful by any means. He had 2 touchdowns passing. It's going to create a lot of conversations.
Yeah, I think, when I saw that, I think actually a message from you maybe is where I first saw that Pine wouldn't be playing. And to be honest, I feel like in normal circumstances, you see that and your heart immediately sinks. And I kind of felt more like, okay, we're going to see what we have. Bowling Green was already the underdog in this matchup. I don't think fans were going into it expecting, yep, we're going to go, kick him in the teeth and just take this win for sure. And so for them to, for him to have to step into that situation, can you think of a more high pressure situation for, your first time really stepping up into the mantle of starter against your heated rival?
Yeah, exactly.
First year.
Only time I can think of is if the MAC did justice and put that game at night.
Yeah.
That was a travesty, by the way. Absolute travesty. I'm going to go on a soapbox here for a minute. Travesty that was a noon game. No, that is criminal that the MAC just puts it on ESPNU, so it gets on a weak national television slot to put that game at noon. Great that we got it on a Saturday, but that game should be 3:30, 4:30, 7 o'clock, no earlier than that.
That was such an electric game, start to finish. Even
they took away a full day of festivities before the game by putting it at a noon slot.
The tailgates would have been so much better. Can you imagine the tailgate lot was already packed, and this an amazing environment.
Bowling Green's not designed to have 30,000 people come into the city at once. The place didn't get fully packed till midway through the first quarter because there's literally one road for everyone from Toledo to get into Bowling Green.
Yeah, and nobody was in the stadium pregame. Nobody was. Everybody was at the tailgate, but the tailgate would have been so much more packed. I feel like the environment was already great. Can you imagine a nighttime environment for that tailgate, and everybody's coming into that game just hype off the tailgate? There's more people, like you said, getting in there when the doors open. Honestly, though, it was just such a great game even though it was during the daytime.
Yeah.
I mean, I got like sunburnt in the stands on the side of my face. The entire left side of my face is sunburnt. It was an awesome environment. It really felt to me like the Falcons actually were reminded of how fun football is.
Yeah.
Especially in the second half. Like that one play, like literally just a dump off play to Petaway that he just bullied his way to the end zone. Like, it just reminded, I think, the whole team, like, this sport is meant to be fun. This sport, we're meant to have a good time doing this. And then, between the trick plays and, the flea flicker and the defense was hyped the whole second half. Like, it really felt like they just really enjoyed playing after a bad Ohio game.
It did. We'll get more on that because I do want to talk about the environment, the fans, and a lot more deeper into the game. But first, I do want to circle back, touch on, the absence of Drew Pine and Coach George's comments on that. So here's that.
Last question here.
I guess when did you find out that Drew wasn't going to be playing? And I guess how did that change things and everything?
Well, we knew it was a possibility he wouldn't be playing going into the bye week. It really didn't come about until earlier that week, that Sunday, actually, we got word that he wasn't going to be playing, that it was a different injury than we occasionally thought, and it needed more time to heal. So we had to really pare down and burn the midnight oil and figure out the best game plan for our offense and how we were going to be able to score points and move the ball.
No, I hear that. And that's a head coach answer, and I respect that. Do you think there's any shot that Lucian Anderson doesn't start until he has that kind of bad performance that we've seen from Pine over the past 2 weeks?
I think there's a possibility. It's a lot more than just performance-based to make that decision for Eddie George. Drew Pine is one of the 4 captains on this team. You do have to consider that. He is very well respected inside that locker room, and he did lead the Falcons to 2 wins when he was playing. So as much as I would like to say that it should be Lucian's job until he were to lose it if Pine gets healthy, because honestly that's probably the route I would go if you're looking to build the program, because Lucian's young. Drew Pine's going to be out of here after this year. It's his final year of eligibility. Lucian has a few more years of eligibility that you could work with and build a program with. But Pine is one of the captains, so you don't want to lose the locker room. If Pine is healthy and there was a majority of that locker room that still wants to see him go out there and still wants to play behind him, if you're Eddie George, you probably have to put Pine back out there at least for one more week to see what he can do.
I think the locker room also likes winning, though.
Yeah,
Pine.
That's why I'm saying though. It's based. You just don't want to lose the locker room. So if the locker room is fully behind Lucian, if they're winning, I don't know that he can make that decision and put Pine back in. I think he would have to ride with Lucian.
Well, I feel like what they should think about doing is having, maybe Pine, either just having Pine on a short leash or splitting reps between 2 of them and using Lucian in certain situations and certain plays, and using each of their quarterbacks to their own strengths. Because I think Lucian proved not only is he a good rushing quarterback, he has plenty of capabilities in the passing department. He proved that in the second half of this game, and I think just benching. If Pine ends up being healthy next year, I don't think it's fair to just bench Lucian Anderson and just say, okay, Pine's back. Let's put him out full start no matter what. I think having a short leash on Pine and giving Anderson the opportunity if the time comes, I think that's important for them.
So what I will add before that, real quick, Holden, is you do have to remember who the offense is designed for.
Yeah,
the whole offseason was put in a short offseason based on when Eddie George and Drew Pine were brought in, was to design an offense centered around what Drew Pine can do. And I think you saw that in the first half when they were still running the same kind of offense and Lucian was trying to find his way in it, trying to see what he could do, because there weren't really many designed runs for him. There's not many RPOs. They didn't really bring out any triple option looks until the second half.
And Toledo played like that. They did not respect the pass at all. There was nobody. I don't think there was any safeties back for multiple plays, but even on third down,
they were aggressive with their blitz packages too. But if Lucian continues to play, do they start to move that offense towards a Lucian catered one? Do we start to see those changes in the offensive schemes? I think that'll honestly tell us a lot over the next week or two, depending on how long Pine is out, of does this offensive scheme start to change at all?
So here's my question to you. I have a couple of them actually based on that because I hear what you're saying. Number one, I'm just going to ask you point blank. Do you think that Bowling Green wins that game if a healthy Drew Pine plays
No.
4 quarters?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Toledo defense.
Do you
switches.
think that there is a better defense remaining on Bowling Green's schedule than the Toledo defense that they just played?
No, not a better defense. But I also don't. I also will say, I don't think that the offense is the reason that they won that game. I think it's the defense. The defense played
Now,
out of their minds.
I will say
the
the defense did gift wrap them the touchdown at the one after the strip sack on Tucker Gleason. Granted, I mean, outside of that, they still scored they scored 21 points outside of that.
stopped them on 2 4th downs in the first half. That should have been and it should have been a 4-score deficit going into halftime. They should have been down by minimum 28 points. So I'm not trying to take away from the offense at all.
The defensive line, the defensive line especially played phenomenal.
Yeah, that's where I don't want to take it away from the offense at all. They played well enough to win it. At the same time, Lucian didn't have 100 passing yards. The defense is the reason they won that game.
Well, and granted that, but Tyler, can you recall for me that stat about long receptions?
Oh yeah, I can. It's actually a pretty interesting one, and I think it just speaks to the lack of dynamic offense when Pine is in. For whatever reason, Pine has the 3rd longest touchdown pass this season for the Falcons. It's behind Lucian Anderson the 3rd and R.J. Garcia the 2nd, a wide receiver.
So think about that for a minute. Obviously, the trick play,
Yeah.
that's, catches the defense off guard. That kind of makes sense. It's not just, he's rocketing, an absolute laser of a pass downfield. Although it was a phenomenal
The
pass.
craziest part to me was Eddie George didn't know if he played quarterback at all previously. He just saw him throw on practice and decided to do that play.
But even so, what part of, there are some inherent, like leadership and locker room things that come with being an older player and an experienced player, especially, at the D1 level and the all Power 4 type of schools. You're talking about this offense catered in a short time to Drew Pine, and I hear that, but like, what part of his skill set do you think that Lucian can't replicate? Because the way I see it, right,
I'm not saying continue.
You've got an offensive, scheme that you're running the ball. We joked about, it's an Eddie George team. He was a running back. They're running the ball a lot. We've seen a lot of games where the quarterback's just not going to have high passing yardage. If you're playing with an offense that's already not designed to have a lot of passes, you're going to make the throws you have to, but it's a very game manager offense. If you have a guy who can make those short, simple game managing passes at a comparable level and is a much more dangerous threat on the ground,
See, that's where I think you're missing what I'm saying. If they stick with the same offense, Lucian doesn't have those opportunities on the ground. We didn't see him run a ton because there aren't.
Though
it takes time though. But what I'm saying though is that's why you still saw Lucian run, but you didn't see him run a ton because he was playing in a system that is designed for a statue in the backfield, which is Drew Pine.
Can I ask you a question though, Tyler?
Yeah.
Do you think they got away from the usual playbook in the second half?
Oh, I think they always
because I really think that Lucian had that one pass. I think it was in the first.
I think
quarter.
Travis Partridge and Eddie George started feeling a little desperate. I think they felt desperate in the pass game and decided to go really deep into their book. Plus, Eddie did note that trick play that you saw from R.J. Garcia was designed over the bye week based on what they saw in the Ohio game. They saw opportunities with what they did against Ohio to be able to run a play like that within their offensive system, and they designed that over these past 2 weeks. So that's not something that they've had up their pocket all year long. That's something that they just recently created within practice. But what I'm saying in terms of the offensive scheme is shifting it more towards Lucian, creating some more RPO type offense, play action type offense, designed run type offense. It would make the offense so more dynamic, and you have a quarterback that you can now do that with.
I also think it's a quarterback that going into this game, there was questions not about his arm strength because we knew he had. We know he has.
He has a cannon,
absolute cannon. But there was questions on whether or not it was a glass cannon. Could he be accurate?
Well, he had 12 pass attempts, so we had no clue.
Yeah, I thought the one drive, I believe it was beginning of the fourth quarter, was one it felt like a true touchdown drive, like within the pass game. He had 2 balls that were just I really thought were just absolute darts. One was up high that got them within the red zone, and then another one was to the tight end for the touchdown.
Jacob Harris.
And I felt like those balls were very well
The
placed.
Jacob Harris throw was one of the best throws by a quarterback this season. It was on the money, on the break of the route. Terrific footwork by Jacob Harris on the left side of the end zone. That was perfection.
Yeah, I really felt like he got more accurate. I felt like he settled in, got more accuracy. I really had fun in that.
I mean, it's kind of what you expect from a rookie quarterback, essentially. I mean, you saw the first pass. It was a little bit of to the right. He just spikes into the ground. Like, that's just nerves. That's jitters. It's his first time running that type of offense. And you would expect him to be nervous, especially, like you mentioned, are we going to play a better defense than Toledo this season? No. Toledo, their defense is real, and it's still real after that game, albeit the offense got some stuff going.
Yeah.
If you just look at the offensive numbers that Bowling Green's offense had, 10 for 17 total passing, 165 yards. Take out the R.J. Garcia pass, it's 92 yards. 2 touchdowns and a pick. On the ground, we had 61 yards on 36 rushing attempts. That's 1.7 yards per attempt. That Toledo defense is ridiculous. So putting a rookie quarterback, a redshirt freshman quarterback out there.
When did he find out that he was going to start in this game, do you think?
They
was a game.
Eddie said that it was on Monday.
It was a Monday.
So he had a full week to prepare for
Okay.
it. Yeah, he had on Monday, Pine showed up to practice in a boot, and the team was informed that he probably wasn't going to play. So Lucian from Monday was preparing mentally to play.
I think part of maybe their emphasis on, how good the rushing defense in that game is how they were probably preparing for that game. I don't know if you think Toledo. Do you think Toledo knew that Drew Pine wasn't going to play going into that game, or
Jason Candle post game? I don't know that they knew, but they prepared for both quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Candle mentioned that they had seen enough of Lucian this year to be able to prep for both of them. So I think he probably did. Also knowing Jason Candle's no idiot. Jason Candle's a good coach. He's the best recruiting coach in the MAC. With how beat up Pine got in that Ohio game, if he didn't prep for Lucian Anderson III, he would have been an idiot. Yeah. So I fully believe that he prepped for both of them. But also, I don't know that it changes their philosophy a ton just because it is so hard to flip over an offensive scheme in a week or two, because it would just be installing a ton. Sure, you can add to it. You just can't fundamentally change the whole thing. So I think they probably prepared pretty much the same as they have.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking because with that point, I was thinking, maybe it could have been they had an extra emphasis on, okay, Lucian is playing. They're probably going to try to rely heavily on the run game. So that's what they prepared most for, and that's what they were ready for, and that's why the run game wasn't successful, especially in the first half. They were completely shut down in the first half, and I think having that ability. The question was, okay, they're probably going to game plan for the run. Is Lucian Anderson going to be able to adapt to that, and are they going to be able to make pass plays work? Are they going to be able to make these sort of trick plays work? And I think those questions were definitely answered.
Well, and I think something like about just offensive philosophy going forward too is that, in any offense, the better you can run the ball, you're going to generally create more opportunities in the passing game. And the same is also true the other way. And, when you're already a team that can run the ball well, you struggled against, a terrific defensive front in Toledo. You play this game again, you play this game at the Glass Bowl, you play it under different circumstances, who knows what this looks like. But the fact of the matter is, that regardless of circumstances, Bowling Green got the win. They found a way to win with circumstances against a team that I think personnel-wise just outmatches them. I mean, if you look at the
I will say too, when you said the defensive line, the one positive out of that battle in the trenches that you can take away, sure, definitely didn't win the run game. They kind of bullied us in that way. The offensive line didn't let up a sack. Lucian got cracked against Ohio on his blind side. Never saw a linebacker blitzing. Didn't happen against the Rockets. He wasn't really touched in the backfield all day long, outside of when he decided to move and try to run. They did an excellent job blocking up front for him.
Yeah, how good was the protection on that trick play to Garcia, too? The protection was phenomenal.
Yeah. So
The offensive linemen, I think, were more hype about that play than anybody.
I mean, Lucian, I watched the pack a few times just to, you kind of watch plays and you'll just watch individual players just to see what they're doing. We watched it a few times. A couple times I just focused on Lucian. He moves up to the left, expecting to block someone, and then just starts standing there and holds himself back from going past the line of scrimmage to not become an ineligible receiver because there was nobody in front of him. Like, the defense just did not expect that. They did not know what to do while you have Petaway just screaming down the sideline wide open. So,
well, like, the Toledo secondary was kind of something that I came to this game nervous about. And I felt like they got torched.
Yeah, outside of Avery Smith, who played great, as always, the other backs back there were a little weaker on some of the... And I don't know that I'd say torched because I think it was one to three plays.
I think they might have been cheating up a little bit, really expecting run. And
there was a couple busted covers.
Those deep balls, they got the PIs because they just weren't expecting a deep ball like that. And there was no, they had, at most, had one safety.
And also, the penalties, just want to touch on that for a second. Because, again, I think Jason Candle's a great coach. You want to talk about not taking accountability post-game? Crazy. I don't think I have the clip. We have the clip queued up. If you want to search for it, Holden, feel free. But he kind of just went like, what do we have? 13 penalties? Well, I guess Bowling Green was double disciplined as we were. Like, you're a Toledo team that is one of the most penalized teams in the MAC. You don't expect for your team to commit penalties? Like, it's been a trend for them all season long. So I just found that interesting that he mentioned he didn't want to complain about them, but kind of like almost used that as a fallback excuse for why Bowling Green was able to get back into the game. But that was a huge factor. Bowling Green did capitalize on the penalty, especially defensively. When you can pin Toledo inside their own 20-yard line for, we felt like 90% of the second half drives, it's beautiful for you. It's so hard for an offense to come back and defend a lead that way. So that was interesting.
The amount of special teams penalties really shocked me.
We were talking on the broadcast. Every punt, every kick, there was a flag on the field.
Yeah. No, it was kind of crazy. And it was either on one team or the other, but it definitely leaned more to this way.
And I think that was the final tally. I think it was 13 for...
The final stat on the penalties between the teams, Bowling Green, 7 penalties for 55 yards. Toledo, 13 for 109 yards.
Wow.
Wow.
You can't have 13 penalties.
100 yards is a touchdown. It's a touchdown worth of penalties.
In college football, it's probably 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's not really an exaggeration to say, that it's that sort of, that level of significant. That then begs the question to me, surely as Bowling Green going forward, you can't expect the other teams to play, that undisciplined. I know the rivalry, the atmosphere, being favored, the expectation, that contributes to the frustrations I get.
Well, and it's also, to add on to that, you can't expect to have a slow start again. And it wasn't really touched on after the game because nobody's thinking of that. You just completed the biggest upset in program history, essentially. But it's another slow start by the offense. They got nothing going until inside the final 2 minutes of the first half. It's concerning. It's a different situation this time, but it also you have a new quarterback. But it's concerning.
Yeah. But it felt like when we talked about it, it felt like a different playbook. That in first half to second half, and that check down play, I feel like really.
I think they were trying to lean Lucian into it too. I don't think they wanted to throw everything at him at once. I think, Eddie did talk about it post game. He said, "I wish, we were kind of hoping that the run game would do some more for Lucian to create some more room for him to start moving downfield and get comfortable." And they really didn't do that. Lucian kind of had to find his way into the game because he didn't have a run game to get him past second.
You got to give him some option plays. I feel like we saw spurts of what he could do running the football, scrambling in the pocket. I feel like if you open up the playbook, like you said, Tyler, give him some option plays.
Give us some read options. You have enough running guys back.
Read options would be great. You have 3 viable running backs and wide receivers that can get involved there too. Like you're telling me Finn Hogan and
I say you have 4. You have Roberts, McMillan, Petaway, and Porter.
I completely forgot about Porter.
Yeah,
4 viable.
He only got 3 carries. So,
but I don't know. the offense needs to get away from like just straight up running the football, because if you add Lucian in, and that's genuinely a dual threat offense.
Yeah.
Of like because I feel like he can, run that kind of offense well, where he has the option to pitch it, to keep it, to throw it. Like he's going to be able to make.
I know they're not going to switch it to it, but boy, would I love to see a triple option. Kind of like what Liberty's offense is.
Right. That, and whenever I think of triple option, I think of the Vanderbilt offense.
That's fair.
That's what I think of. That is because they've torched so many teams using that. I don't know. It would be really cool to see. At the very least, I want to see a lot of play action.
Yeah.
Play action.
Yeah, you just need to see a little something more.
Let the kid throw the rock.
Yeah,
Let the kid throw the rock.
I said this to Tyler before the game. I know it ended up being, an interception and a ball in double coverage, but like at the time when Lucian threw that deep ball that got picked, I didn't hate that call. Maybe like where, how the routes look where you're scheming that kind of deep shot. Maybe there's some things you look at there, some change, especially, when you look at the defense you're playing in a given week. But, take it a shot, especially when you've established, teams aren't game planning BG for the pass.
I will say, I do think on that play, I don't hate that ball, because I'm definitely the person that is like, throw out your receivers down there somewhere kind of mentality. But throwing in double coverage, not the greatest look. I don't hate it, especially since it was in, I believe that was Garcia, I believe. It was in his hands. It just kind of got ripped from him.
Yeah, it got ripped from him.
And but I think that, I'm sorry, I'm the volleyball guy. I don't really know the depth chart for football.
Of that football
but
game,
I think the tight end on that play.
Hats off to Bowling Green.
On the left side of the field.
One tough game today.
Basically.
Made a couple more plays than we did at the end.
he got
Obviously
free.
disappointed
That's where Lucian.
our ability in the second half.
You can't expect him to make every
pick up
correct.
third
No,
downs.
Of course not. This was first start.
Put ourselves in a
he's not
hole.
gonna- he's not gonna get
Oftentimes
rid of
with
and honestly,
penalties.
it was
I think cost us and put us
good
behind
ball,
the eight ball.
just-
and,
it was
a
in
lot
double.
of
But
mistakes,
that's the
and
one thing.
self-inflicted
He
things
has
we
a
have to
good
clean up and
ball
get
out
off
of
the
the
tape
hands.
if we're
It's
going to
pretty
improve as a
looking
football team.
when he launches the deep ball. It's
so,
not a bad. Doesn't
that being
really.
said,
It's a
take
tight
questions.
spiral. So, and like we said, he's got an arm. I think it's still out to see what exactly his accuracy is. I don't think we exactly have that answer yet. We haven't seen enough. I mean, let's see. He threw it.
Yeah, we lost both
16
games.
times, so we've seen a total of 28 pass attempts in 2 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's an emotional game all the way
So,
across the board. It's an emotional week. Obviously, a
lot of
game that
question
means
marks.
a lot to both
I
communities.
wouldn't say a lot of
and,
question marks
Everybody
there, but
puts a lot of
still
time
some
and energy
question
into
marks.
this. Not just
I
the
have
players,
a
the coaches,
new
everybody
favorite
does.
player,
So,
I think,
you
on the
want to
Bowling
win.
Green team,
You want to win for
and
your
it's
fan
on the
base. You want to win
defensive
for
line.
your own
Number
your locker
17.
room. You want to win for
I'm
your
forgetting
program.
his name, but
today we didn't get it done.
he played great, and I felt like he was just literally going to the sidelines after every stop, just jumping up and down, and going to every single one of his teammates and high fiving, making sure everyone was locked in and getting up and staying hype and into the game. And it was really cool to see, because you typically don't see that, I think, from a defensive lineman, just getting up after every stop.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot of excitement throughout that team, and it kind of the energy level never really dropped for the team. We had Aiden. We actually were able to do a little sideline reporting on the broadcast for the first time. Had him call in, so that was something new. But he mentioned that when they were going into the locker room, they're down 21-7. It's a tough position to be in at home. Eddie was just standing there telling all the players, find a way, find a way. That was the message going to the locker room, is find a way. And I think I included it in my story about the defense that I put out on bgfalconmedia.com. But the defensive coordinator, Brandon Fisher, he just pretty much laid into the defense at halftime, which got that defense motivated and got them going for their performance in the second half. So I think we finally do have that clip of Jason Candle about the penalties, which was a huge part of the game.
Here it is.
Don't go our way. We're at times. I'm not going to sit here and comment on penalties, but I mean, I don't know. How many do we have? 13 of them or something like that. So I guess we're twice as undisciplined as Bowling Green is, I guess. And that falls on me. So we got to get it fixed.
Yeah, I hear that clip and I'm like,
it's odd.
It falls on me. Okay, there's verbal acknowledgement, I guess, but I don't know. I mean, this is a team that's been, I feel like, kind of been known to, like, their identity under Jason Candle. I mean, they've clearly been a great team, great at recruiting, as you mentioned. I mean, you look at some of the guys they've had over, the years of his tenure, I mean, you understand why they've been as good as they are. But, I mean, were you shocked to see them lose the penalty battle as the way as that sounds? I mean, they looked like the more undisciplined team out there, and this feels like especially if you look into the frustrations of many Toledo Rocket fans on the internet, kind of a recurring thing.
Per game, Toledo has the most penalties and penalty yards in the MAC. 8.7 penalties for 79.3 yards per game.
That's crazy.
But Bowling Green's the third most. They're 53.2 yards.
Wow. So not really even close.
The second most is 60.5. They have 20 more penalty yards than the next closest.
And who is second?
Miami.
Okay.
Wow.
Miami, that's another team that I expect to be disciplined.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, I think sometimes we automatically conflate that consistent discipline with the on-field success.
They're also something else that I think is willing to bring up if we're looking at it from the Toledo side as well. What a weird fourth down to go for. I was 7.
Yeah, that was.
Do you guys know? Are you guys aware how bad Toledo is at fourth downs?
I was not. I was watching that. Was it like a fourth and 7?
I expected the sequence.
I thought it was third down.
Watch a light game, fourth down from BG, where they put Lucian out there, but you could tell, okay, they're just trying to get a jump. They're not calling a play here. That's what I was expecting when they snapped the ball. I was dumbfounded. I mean,
but Toledo coming out of that game was 2 for 8 on fourth downs this year. They're 2 for 10 now, second worst in the conference, and they went for 2 of them in the first half. Like, I get being aggressive.
7.
I get being aggressive, but here, let me gift wrap you. Like, the goal line stands different. I mean, it kind of is. You could take the points. He didn't take the points.
I think they really just, not purposefully, but really disrespected.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Really disrespected.
Like, if you think about that, once again, that's a 4-score game. If they go, either way, if you get a field goal out of one of them, the goal stand should be a touchdown. And then the other one, a field goal, and the at worst.
The mindset had to be like, we know you can't score 21 points.
I mean, it was 7-0 when they went for the first fourth down. It's not like they were up by 2 scores already.
I just don't think it makes. I just don't think going for 4th and 7 when you have a field goal makes sense in any circumstance, unless you need a score. And
were they not just confident in their kicker to make that?
Their kicker had a leg. We saw him hit. He did miss a few. He missed one from about 40 pregame. He missed a few from 50. Took him 3 or 4 tries. They hit from 60, and then he got it off the crossbar. So he doesn't have as big of a leg as Cleather, I don't think, from launching.
I mean,
kickers in the
it was what? Like, what was it going to be like?
Cleather hit a 63-yarder in warm-ups. Yeah. So
that dude has a leg.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Albeit it was with the wind, so probably like a high 50s without anything.
Yeah,
but still, yeah.
I really, something I've been thinking about, I mean, pretty much nonstop since the end of that game is, where do we go from here? Big win, necessary win. Detroit is absolutely still on the table right now for this team. That's not it. So straight to the imagination.
Especially with how the rest of the MAC is just question marks all over the place.
Yeah, but my I think my hang up, I guess, is how much of yesterday can be replicated and or will be replicated. There's some significant outliers. You're probably not going to have a sold out home crowd for a game against Central Michigan. You're not going to have a sold-out home crowd
Considering it hasn't happened for 22 years.
for a game against Buffalo.
Yeah.
That was
Those
crowd.
other two home games.
That was so much fun.
Amazing, phenomenal home field environment. But I mean, we haven't. None of us have seen that.
The one thing I'll say about the crowd is I wish the student section stayed a little longer. Some of that student section went out a little early.
You go down 3 scores, and I think
I know, but it's a rivalry game.
But the opinion of a lot of people watching that game is like, okay, it's a Saturday, like we're gonna go do something else. I mean, the reason that I stay was just because I really felt like it was too early to quit on the team, and we were talking about like maybe leaving at halftime, and then that score happened at the end of the half. We're like, all right, we gotta stay now. We could come back, and then we did, and it was a fantastic game to be there for. And I have to think that the student section that left has to be kicking themselves that they didn't stay and witness probably what was one of, if not the best comeback in Bowling Green history. Definitely the best comeback in Battle I-75's history.
Yeah.
So regardless, we're not going to see that sort of home crowd again. It's going to continue to be good crowds. I think this.
How much can it really be considered? Like, I know it's a home crowd. It was the majority Bowling Green fans, but there was a lot of Toledo fans there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Toledo fans.
Yeah, you're not
Really, it's 25 miles apart.
Exactly. That's what I think. I think the important part is just if the students show up, because the students provide so much of the environment just in terms of Eddie
George came over at one point in the fourth quarter. Was when Bowling Green tied things up for no MPs after the trick play there. He came over and just hyping up the crowd. I really like from that moment on, I don't think anybody thought we were going to lose.
No, I think there's a lot of buy-in, and I think you're going to see a lot less of, if Bowling Green goes into another half down, 7-14, 21, I don't think nearly as many people are going to go anywhere after what just happened in the second half yesterday. But regardless, you've got a couple of home games left. We've talked about this. The back half of the schedule is softer. You had easily the hardest.
I just went through and looked at the records of that back half of the schedule. 3-3, 2-4, 3-3, 2-5, 2-5, and then the worst team in FBS Division I, UMass, 0-6. If you can get through 3-3, 2-4, 3-3, which is Central Michigan, Kent State, Buffalo. If you can get through those 3 with 3 wins, I think you win out.
You're in a great position. We don't play Western Michigan or no Western.
No Ball
Michigan.
State.
No Miami.
No Miami.
I'm like,
This schedule is really
when I saw Western put 42-0 on Ball State. That was shocking.
You're avoiding both of them. But I really think it is Central, and then you have a trap game against Kent State before Buffalo, and then you have Buffalo. If you get through those 3 games,
Kent State,
you win out.
Kent State, I think, is I don't know. I should ask the football expert here. What is the game of there that you're worried
Buffalo.
like? Buffalo.
Buffalo,
the team to kind of just come in and do an upset.
Buffalo's the game I'm worried about. 2-0 in conference play. They're a legitimate good team.
They had a couple of players of the week, didn't they, last week?
I believe they did.
What I like about looking at that Buffalo schedule is just that they barely beat Eastern in overtime, and their other win is over Kent. And
They did.
I know it has a win. Kent has 2 wins on the season, though.
I know.
FCS win and UMass. So, you know what I mean? Like, as far as I'm concerned, I have yet to see anything from Kent that tells me they're any different from UMass. Like, I think UMass is the worst.
Here's the thing that I hate when people compare like this. Football's all about matchups.
Yep.
You cannot go based on, because this team beat this team, that means this team should win. If that's the case, well, then the Browns should get some points for beating the Packers.
Yeah, if that's the case, UCLA is beating Alabama. Because Alabama lost to Florida State, and Florida State just lost to UCLA. No, I'm sorry. It was a different team. Excuse me. I think it was Pitt. Not UCLA.
The same principle.
Same principle.
Applies.
You can't do that.
No,
It doesn't make any sense.
And I don't mean in terms of just like one-on-one matchups that,
No, but Buffalo, I think, is the best team out of the remaining. I honestly think they're a little weaker than I thought they were going to be before the season. I thought they were legitimately going to be the second best team in the conference, behind either Toledo or Ohio. I was leaning Toledo, and I kind of thought Ohio was going to be that third wheel that kind of hung around and was good as always. Buffalo hasn't had a game where they impressed me this year, but they've found ways to win a few games. So they are still the one that I still think is the biggest concern for a loss. It's November 1st, too. It's right after Halloween. Weird things happen around that time of year in the football schedule.
So
There's some extracurriculars going on around the community as well that takes your focus off of it. So, again, if you get through that, you have Eastern Michigan away, Ypsilanti, hour and a half up the road, Akron at home, not a good team. UMass shouldn't even be FBS Division One. They should be relegated to FCS and forgot about forever.
But who should the MAC pick up as a replacement?
Anyone with them.
Northern Ottawa.
But you do have to go on the road to Massachusetts, so I mean anything could happen. But they're 0-6. They are.
That's hilarious. I mean, Northern Illinois is what?
UMass is scoring 9.7 points per game with 239 yards of offense per game, 58 yards rushing per game. They are. If Kent State was bad last year, ooh, this is a very bad team.
So they lost.
I don't think I could make a worse team on a video game if I tried.
They don't have a win yet this season.
No, they're 0-6.
So
They're not even close.
Here's my takeaway. I don't think. I think the most important thing in front of the Falcons is you're still looking to punch your ticket to the MAC championship. You beat your rival. You won on homecoming. You're going to get a bowl, realistically, because you play UMass and you play Kent and you play Akron. And, I mean, I think there's very little chance that any of those teams beat.
Crazier things have happened.
Crazy things have happened. But my point is, as far as that road to Detroit, the biggest obstacle is that there are still just good teams in front of you. Ohio has the tiebreaker with you because they beat you if it's just those two teams. It's the sample. So here Buffalo and Western, both undefeated in the conference, so is Miami. One thing that I think is very favorable, Miami of Ohio has a gauntlet remaining on this season. Miami still plays the other 4 of the top 6 that aren't Bowling Green.
So if we're playing that schedule game, Miami, Buffalo, Western are the only undefeated in the conference. So they're the top 3 that if the season ended today, you'd had tiebreakers. We don't want to get into that. It's too early to get into tiebreakers. But they would be the 3 that 2 of them would be going to Detroit. The next bracket is BG, Central, Ohio, Ball State, Kent State, all with 1 loss. After that, it's Toledo, Akron, Eastern, NIU, UMass. Very good for BG that Toledo has 2 losses already. Doesn't knock them out of contention, but they really can't take another one to make it to the MAC championship. Kent State's not going to be there at the end of the year. Ball State's probably not going to be there at the end of the year. So you're looking at Ohio, CMU, BG, Miami, Buffalo, Western at this point in the year. It's going to be between those two teams.
I think it'd be.
So if you're Bowling Green, realistically, if you want to make it to Detroit, you probably can only afford 1 more loss, if that.
Yeah. But I do think that it is a very successful season regardless. If you make it to whether or not you make it to Detroit, if you make a bowl game and then you win that bowl game, and A. George's first year as head coach, that is a lot of success. That's a great season to have with a first-year head coach.
I made this comment before the show to Tyler. If they go to a bowl game and win it, this season is a greater success than the tenure of Scott Loeffler. Is not a crazy thing to say.
Agreed. Their win-loss over-under, by the way, to begin the season, was 5.5 to 6.5. They're probably going to hit it or go past that.
Yeah, I would say that'd be
Great if they can surpass expectations. I definitely think they've beating. We talked about it.
15 players.
Yeah,
15 players.
Yeah, no, insane amount of players, insane transfer class.
I mean,
a new coach.
What you're saying, beating that Toledo team, BG should have They should have had no chance to win that game. Toledo is one of 2 teams in the country that did not lose a starter or a second-string player due to the portal. The other team was Navy. Them 2 alone are the only 2 teams
That is
in the country.
crazy.
Toledo has basically the most tenured coaching staff in the country. They're the only coaching staff with a head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and strength and conditioning coach to all be there for at least 6 years. No other team in the country can say that. Toledo has not had a losing season under Jason Candle. It's the 3rd longest non-losing season streak in the country. Toledo leads the MAC in basically every offensive category. They lead the MAC in basically every defensive category. They're a top 10 statistical defense in the country. They walked into Bowling Green, took a 21-0 lead. Bowling Green has never overcome a 20-point deficit. BG goes into the second half, scores 28 straight points. The only points that Toledo gets in the second half are 2 points on a safety, with Lucian running out of the back of the end zone as time expires. Looking at it from the outside, BG should have had no business winning that game, and they won it. That's a big difference. As a lot of stuff that happened in the Loeffler era, that's a big difference this year.
I feel like it's the complete opposite. Whereas it felt like with Loeffler still as head coach, it felt like a lot of games got choked away.
Yeah.
We were first half team, whereas now
He's Franklin away. Now maybe a little early for that one.
Too soon.
That's too soon, man. And now it seems we are a second half team. I also would like to say, we talked about on this show multiple times in previous weeks, going to the Ohio and Toledo 2-game stretch. We said, if you want to make the MAC championship, if you want to have a bowl game, you got to go 1-1.
Against Toledo and Ohio.
Against Toledo and Ohio. We got that one win there. I mean, we had a bad game against Ohio, but this win against Toledo puts us in a position whereas now the bowl game is very possible in a MAC champion.
I don't think they're ever going to go 2-0 against those teams, and you'd much rather have a win against Toledo than Ohio.
It's a little sweeter, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about, what was it, at the beginning of the season, that there's a world where this team is 1-5 through the first 6. Yeah. So that was a realistic world, and now we're in a world where they won 2 of those games that they could have easily
about like that Liberty win is still.
Yeah.
I'll bet that is.
That's a pressure team.
When's the last time, if ever, that BG has won despite being double-digit underdogs? Does anybody know?
Done it more than any team in the country. So this Loeffler got here. I know that much.
That's awesome. Wow.
I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty confident that when I get fact-checked on this, that we have done it more than any other FBS team since 2019. If Tyler, or maybe it's since 2017, but it is since about the past decade or 8-7 years, we have more than any other FBS team.
If Tyler had told me before volleyball and football season began that football was going to win the Battle of I-75 and BG was going to lose it in volleyball, I would have been very angry, and I would have been flat out. We're living in a world where that somehow happened.
They're the only fall team to win, because women's soccer drew.
Hey, I mean,
More, we'll get into that shortly. But yeah, truly just a staggering win. To kind of tie up, I think.
Well, when we won too, us up in the booth, myself, Lucas, and Sean, kind of just all looked at each other like, "Did that really happen?" Like, it took us a second to fully understand that Bowling Green came back and won that game, because sure, in the back of your head, you're like, "Oh, they're going to win it." Nobody expected them to actually come back and win that. They're down by 21 to score 28 straight points and not have Tucker Gleason and Chip Trainum, a former Ohio State running back, who also played at 2 other Power 5 schools, not put up any points on you in the second half, and you seal it with an interception of Gleason.
Kind of a shocking game from Gleason also. Like,
he struggled last year. He threw 2 picks against BG last year.
I get like, and I'm going to, keep this brief, but I expected more from what we've seen that he can do against other teams, and for, realistically, a defense that, they had, I would say, outmatched personnel-wise. I mean, I think we're quickly finding out some of our defense is better than we might have thought.
Well, I put this out this morning. I went through and tallied all the numbers because for whatever reason in college football, they don't just give you like first and second half splits that easy. First half, Tucker Gleason was 10 for 14, 178 yards and a touchdown. Their rushing attack was 23 attempts for 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. They were dominant. We couldn't stop them. Second half, Gleason's completion percentage was still there. He was 9 for 16, only threw for 86 yards, no touchdowns, an interception. Their rushing was 20 attempts for 35 yards and a fumble. 20 attempts for 35 yards and a fumble after they let 23 attempts for 130 and 2 touchdowns in the first half. Just absolutely stifled them in the second. They had no answers. They were shocked. Like, Gleason didn't know what to say. Candle didn't know what to say after the game. They don't know why the offense didn't do anything. BG didn't really change anything.
Not to mention the strip sack on Gleason as well.
Yeah, and it just, everyone on the defense woke up. It was, and also, as we're rounding up this talk, it wasn't just one player on defense.
I was just thinking that. It was a whole unit
We looked
effort.
at this too, and I sent it to Sean, our other football beat, and I went, hey, look at this. Everyone did something on defense. And he just responded to me, yeah, they were all flying around the field, which is correct. Gideon Lampron, 13 tackles, 10 of them solo, 3.5 tackles for loss. He's the middle linebacker. He's been great in that because of Pringle being out for the year. MJ Cannon, 7 tackles, the game-sealing pick. Kyle Pascal, 6 tackles and a forced fumble. Miles Bradley, 1.5 tackles for loss, a sack, a forced fumble. McClendon and Marshall combined for 4 passes defended. And then Hines, Afogo, Evan Branch Haynes, and Tomlinson, Isaiah Tomlinson, combined for 14 tackles and 4 tackles for loss. Wow. Everyone contributed to that on defense. There wasn't one player on defense that was a bad outlier or anything. Everyone contributed.
I do think that...
And also, before you go, I do want to mention, he's not on the stats here, but Eric George did generate a few pressures that don't really show up in the stats, but he was a factor.
I think he was a factor in that game as well. I think everybody got pressure on Gleason in that second half at one point or another. There was that one play, it was a drop by Toledo that was cornerback got burned, got beat by about a step and a half. And it was his hands.
The one where it was just a bit,
Gleason
could have just the head outreach.
Gleason could not have put it in the breadbasket any more than that. And it was like a 40, 45-yard bomb.
Think about if he caught that.
Yeah.
Think about how that changes the game.
Yeah, I mean, really a stellar defensive performance. And looking forward, I think that's the one thing that you can rely on to be sustainable. You know, the offense, put some things together, put up some points, and, hopefully find some more identity going forward. But right now, that defense, I mean, I think you're pretty confident looking at that unit. And going forward into the rest of this schedule, I think you can circle a game again. You beat Toledo. This is the one at the start of the year. If you go 1-11, this is the game you want to win. Now, looking ahead, they've got Central Michigan at home next weekend. The following weekend, Kent State on the road, and then you've got Buffalo at home. I think that Buffalo game, the big one, the next big win. I mean, we've seen the MAC cannibalize itself and turn into, okay, now, 6 teams have 2 losses, and we've got to do the math and figure out who might have a chance at Detroit. And that was fun last year. To really give yourself the chance, you've got to get the win against Buffalo. You're probably going to beat Central. You're probably going to beat Kent.
And I do think, if you remember last year, it came down to a game against Miami on Black Friday at the end of the season. Again, looking at that schedule, the final 3, of course, you wouldn't want to trip up and lose one of them. It's always possible that you could, but those are as guaranteed wins as Lafayette was at the beginning of the season. Those are ones that you should not lose, especially to Akron and to UMass. You should not lose those. If you can get through those first 3, even if you take a loss to Buffalo, as long as you beat Central and Kent State, or if you take a loss at Kent State, as long as you beat Kent State and Buffalo, you're going to have a shot. And it's great for the team that those games are not the final 3, that you get those out of the way now, and then you have the easier ones on the back end.
And you've got momentum, too.
Yes.
You've reminded yourself, something that I don't think the team ever stopped believing, but you've reminded yourself, we're a team that can compete at a championship level, and we are still on track for that goal. And now, you have to go take care of the rest of the way. The last little tidbit I'll leave on that Buffalo game is notably Buffalo and Western, as we mentioned, currently leading the conference, do not play each other.
No.
So should Miami end up being worse than predicted and Buffalo and Western both beat Miami, that absolutely creates a situation where Buffalo and Western could just, stay at the top the entire rest of the season.
And Bowling Green
Bowling Green
can't do anything against Western. They don't play them. So
fortunately, they've got, again, the schedule a little bit in their favor with Ohio, Ball State, and Miami.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of teams closer to them all playing some competition. But I mean, the way I see it, Buffalo is by far the hardest game remaining. If you take care of that, the rest should sort itself out, and you are well on your way to a MAC championship berth, something that this community and this team and this city
and since 2015,
been
decade ago.
For.
Reese and I did a series on it over the summer that released at the beginning of the school year, and it's just, it's been 10 years. Like, the community is so hungry for it. It was a magical run 10 years ago, that 3-year run, and since then it's just been, everyone's just been waiting to get close to that. And the closest we've got is the past few years. They just have never punched the ticket to get to Detroit.
Well, they've got 6 games left on the schedule to try to punch that ticket. Like I said, I think I should be on Buffalo, but the next one up is going to be the Central.
Yep.
This Saturday, it'll be another noon kickoff from Dwight Perry Stadium. And I know Tyler's.
It's great for the sport. Look at that. Put an action game on at noon.
As always, Beauty Falcon Media will have coverage of that. Falcon Media Sports Network will have a broadcast as well as recaps, video highlights, and everything you could ask for a BG home football game.
I'll be on the call with someone. I'm not exactly sure who yet, but I will be on the call for that. So make sure to tune in on Falcon Radio.
Stay tuned for that. That's going to wrap up football in an hour. Is that the longest football segment we've done? If not, it's close.
Maybe. I don't know how far did you guys go after the Black Friday loss to Miami.
I feel like it's easier to talk for a long time when you're happy about the result or excited about the result. That one was just, for being there, whether you were a fan of either team, that was a cold game. It's like, okay, this game's over. Let's put this one out of mind.
That's one of the longer ones, but it deserves it.
Yeah.
It deserves it. That kind of win, you got to respect it.
We're going to step away for station identification, but when we come back, we've got a lot more to talk about as really some exciting things shaking up the world of women's soccer, men's soccer, and volleyball for the Falcons, and hockey played a weekend series. We'll talk about that too. So don't go anywhere because you're still listening to the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Ever heard of Falcon Media Sports Network's broadcasts on Falcon Radio or WBGU 88.1 FM, but don't know where to listen? Well, set down the radio, pick up your phone, and go to bgfalconmedia.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to stream Falcon Radio and WBGU 88.1 FM for all broadcasts.
Welcome back in here to the second half of the Zig Zone, Falcon Media Sports Network show, taking you through everything going on in the world of Bowling Green athletics. Once again, I'm your host, Holden Ruck, here with Tyler Kavlitz, Henry Costco, and Andrew Smith, who we didn't have the chance to introduce at the top of the first hour, but we've got the three of them still here, and we're going to go ahead and talk about the rest of the goings-on because there's been a lot going on. I want to go into volleyball first. Andrew, I know you cover the team. I want to start because I was there Tuesday. The volleyball team started this past week of competition Tuesday at Savage Arena in a match that, the first set was a win in favor of Toledo. So you're down 1-0 after that set. And in the second set, Bowling Green, put it back together. They started playing like Bowling Green. There have been some questions, especially from those who haven't been able to see the matches, I think, and only kind of look at box scores about, okay, but when's Lauren Hovey going to be back, et cetera. I think that's a big question that everyone wants to know, even our experts. But even so, the feeling for me being at the game was, okay, this feels like Bowling Green's in control again. They'll probably go to 5 sets, but I felt comfortable about where they were at. And in that third set, you see Amanda Otten come down weird and then stay down and then get helped off the court and come back to the bench with ice on the knee and BG falls in 4 sets. Take me through that, how that felt for you, Andrew. Like your thoughts on, Bowling Green's outlook for the rest of that set, for the season, just on, initial reaction.
Well, this is a team that tends to drop the first set no matter who they're if it's a good team, they tend to drop the first set. I feel like this is a team that we often feel out our opponents, see how they're doing, see what they're running, what the offense is looking like, what they're kind of what we need to do on offense to get around their defense, and then come out in the second set and win it. And then you saw that in the Toledo game. Tied things up 1-1. Everything kind of went according to plan, even if Lauren Hovey wasn't in the game. I mean, you have to remember, without her playing, Bowling Green 6-0, and undefeated in MAC play up until that point. And then Amanda Otten goes down with that injury, and Anna Shatek is forced to come into the game with no prep, not know she was going to play. She hadn't played since September of last year, and she has to come into that game and try to beat a very good Toledo roster, a very disciplined and strong defensive Toledo team. And it would be very difficult to be up for that task, and she didn't play to her normal standards. She is a good player. She's a Polish national player. She has done well in states tournaments in Poland. Like, she is a good player, but to come in that situation, no one's going to perform up to their usual par, and BG ends up dropping those 2 sets in a row. And honestly, I think it was all centered around that injury, because everyone was just so shocked and overwhelmed that they just lost someone who is not only a great player for this team, not someone that is probably, before the injury, was going to be Max Setter of the Year, also a leader on this team, someone who is always positive, always hyping up her teammates, and being a constant leader, which you have to be at the setter position for your team. And losing that lost them that match. I was really, really impressed, and honestly a little surprised that they bounced back so quickly against what is genuinely a pretty good NIU squad later in the week, and beat them in 4 sets and then swept them the next day. That was a really good look. It was just a really great way to bounce back. And Lauren Hovey and Amanda Otten are both, joking, smiling on the sidelines. By Friday, Amanda Otten was no longer on crutches, just in a knee brace. So there is definitely hope that she'll be back probably within, I'd imagine, 4 weeks, 5 weeks or so. We don't really know exactly the details of her injury, only that she seems to be in very high spirits, and the whole team is very hopeful that she'll be back, at least in time for the MAC tournament.
Yeah, and I think, when we were driving home from Toledo, I mean, frankly, I think it was understandable to be like reacting significantly. I was wondering, wow, do we even have a road, there? I mean, you look at the stats, you do the research, Anna Shiktek, a good player, like you said, but you're just looking at such a different situation from how they've been playing, and such a, I think talking about how good of a player, your backup setter is, you cannot overstate how just phenomenal and influential on the game Amanda Otten is for the Falcons. And so to be, looking ahead to that schedule without 2, not 1, but 2, currently, of your leaders and best players, I went into, Thursday thinking that, chalk up this series as an L and hope that they can start figuring things out. And instead it was, a resounding win.
It was a resounding win. It was definitely a series that I thought we might drop one game. I was never sold on this. They started the season 2-0, but I was never really sold on this NIU team. I know my Kobe Ben Korak, but going into the series, really thought that the Huskies were going to give us a lot of trouble. They do have a very high octane offense, and we've both been watching that with interest this season. They're an undersized team, and a team that going into the series, I thought that we could block well, despite Amanda Otten being out. That's really, like, her setting is great, but what really makes her such a great player overall is her ability to play defense, blocking, and then go into the back row. And also, she's been putting up great numbers in the back row, off serve receive, off digging the ball. The real change happened after that first set, in the first match on Thursday against NIU, the Falcons switched to a 6-2, which for listeners that don't know what that is, all that it means is that instead of the typical 5-1 the Falcons run of 5 attackers and 1 setter being Amanda Otten, they were doing 6 attackers and 2 setters, one of those being Anna Shitek, and then the other being Belle Laube. And as soon as that change happened, they stunned NIU the rest of the time. NIU wasn't even close to winning any of the sets in that first match, and then the second match, they played much better, the Huskies did, but the Falcons just overshadowed that and came out with a sweep victory. But all those sets on Friday were very, very close.
Do you expect that change to that 6-2 rotation is going to be the standard for this team at minimum until Amanda Otten can potentially return?
Absolutely. It worked too well for it not to be. And Anna, as great of a setter that she is, she can't block like Otten can. I mean, she's like, I think 6 or 7 inches shorter. My math is probably wrong on that. She can't block like Otten does. She doesn't have the presence in the front row.
How much shorter, Andrew?
I'm not going to resell.
Well, I think that is why Amanda Otten's kind of a unicorn in the MAC, though.
Oh yeah,
like when Ben made. I remember Ben last year when Otten didn't win MAC Setter of the Year. It was like,
she's not only a unicorn in the MAC, she's a unicorn in the NCAA.
He was like, we need clarifications. Is this setting only or doing everything in the setter position? Because if it's the second one there, she does everything out of the setter position, which, like you said, not many people can do, typically because of size, but also just her skill. Yeah. And she's just, I don't know. So you would have to fill that in other ways.
She definitely is game altering. And the really worst part, I think, about her, the timing of her injury, is she was playing the best volleyball I have seen her play against Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan. She played phenomenal.
Kind of lined up with how I started last year, where she started slow and just continued to build up through the season.
Yeah, just like that. But like the stats didn't really back it up, because she had there was a match this year, I believe it was against Loyola, where she had 45 odd assists. She had a match where she had 52 assists. There were games where statistically she was better, but it really felt like one of those where you watched her play and it was just beautiful volleyball to watch. Mm-hmm. Everything was clicking for her. And then she goes down with that knee injury, which really sucks. Because Ben and I genuinely thought that she was definitely in the front running for MAC Setter of the Year. But this lineup of Laube and Shitek coming into set, obviously Anna's going to be the main setter, with Isabel Laube being just coming in and being that secondary option for when Shitek would go into the front row. And I was so impressed with Belle. She came in and played really out of her mind. Really, genuinely, for what she had done previously, which albeit was not much this season. She had come in as a pinch server. She had never set before. She hadn't set since 14U club matches. And she came in and she set well, especially to Maria Tabak, who came in with her for that rotation. It was a strange rotation, the two of them coming in at the same time. That's really strange rotation. Worked really well, though. Maria Tabak came in, and her hitting was phenomenal. I was not expecting her to come in. She's also a lefty like Lauren Hovey. I was not expecting her to come in on the right side and play the way she did, but she played really well and blocked really well, too, which is the main purpose of putting her in the game.
So, what do you look at it, clearly able to rebound and adapt well in the face.
It's a deep team. That's what makes them so strong. It's a deep, deep team with a lot of talent on the roster.
So what are you expecting to see now going forward? I mean, if you look at the MAC standings, Toledo now beneath Bowling Green in those standings because of a sweep from Ball State, who looks like a juggernaut right now.
Ball State does that. Ball State was very, very good last year. Young last year. Carson Tyler is the best when Lauren Hovey is not playing. The best hitter in the MAC, definitely the best outside hitter in the MAC, and that is not even a conversation. It's not close. She, as a freshman, was so impressive, so impressive. The location that she has on her swings for the power that she has is really impressive. And then to add on to that, she's a complete player. She can go to the back row and play. She has a top spin serve. She does it all. And we talked about it last year of if she has a team built around her, they're going to be like real contenders in the MAC and not just a team that is underdogs all the way through the tournament and makes the finals to lose to Western Michigan like they did last season. They're going to be a team that's going to be the team to beat. And that's what they are now because they found those players around her to really build up this roster, and they are really good. And right now, with an injured Bowling Green team, they are the best team in the MAC. And so going into this series, if the Falcons can win one, if they can go 1-1 in the series, that'd be a huge, huge victory. If this Bowling Green team was fully healthy, genuinely, I didn't expect them to lose in the MAC. If they were fully healthy, I think they would have gone undefeated in the MAC.
I mean, I think you look at the results they're able to get without two, all MAC caliber players, players that, I mean, I think there's even a strong argument could be playing at like higher competition conferences.
Lauren Hovey could be playing at a Power 4 conference. She could definitely if she wanted to. And honestly, I think it proves how great Bowling Green is, how great the volleyball coaching staff is, that she hasn't even, I don't even think, thought about transferring. She loves it here. And she's by far the best player in the MAC, which Carson Tyler, it seems, is going to take that mantle from her when Hovey graduates this year. But she is probably one of, if not one of the best players in Bowling Green volleyball history. That's not a far cry at all from what she's done over the course of her career.
No, I mean, I think the pretty consistent visits to the record book from her are a testament to that. So, I mean, what does this run to make the MAC tournament first tier look like to you from BG? Again, there's just the uncertainty about those appearances, but I mean, Northern Illinois, maybe as you're saying, maybe not as good as they once seemed, but also, I mean, if you look in the standings right now, still well ahead of a lot of the MAC. I mean, if that's, your benchmark for, okay, what this team can do against the current fifth team in the MAC.
The MAC is very, in my eyes, obviously a lot of things can change, a lot of things can happen, but right now the MAC seems very, dominated by BG and Ball State, even with BG injured. I think the road right now for the Falcons is your mindset is making the tournament, because the thought process needs to be Hovey and Otten are not going to be here until we get to the tournament with their injuries. Lauren Hovey's has just been bothered with an injury. She tried to play in the Michigan State game. She did not play well. She looked very uncomfortable, clearly being bothered by something. Hasn't played since. Amanda Otten now out with her knee injury. We don't know when they're going to be back. The mindset needs to be making the tournament, and that's something that I think this team can do. It can do handily, because I don't think, besides Ball State and Western Michigan, that another team on the schedule is going to give them much trouble.
What I guess the advantage of that is you do host the tournament, so you don't really have to worry too much about travel with that. That should give them some comfort knowing that it will be here if they can make the tournament and hopefully get those pieces back.
Yeah.
If I believe it will probably be Ball State that it's there. I think they might come out in first in the MAC if BG stays injured. I don't.
Well, no, the tournament it's in Bowling Green.
Oh, the tournament is.
Yeah, because they did adapt.
I remember we had this out on a Dara show.
Yeah, they adapted
being the regular.
They adapted
season
where the regular season
last
champion.
year.
Yeah, we'll host it.
They
So
earned the following year's tournament hosting
Oh,
privilege.
Okay.
so if Ball State wins it, it'll be a lot
You were
easier.
just being really confident on the
No.
schedule, put it about a sad home.
Well, that's what this actually stemmed from when we talked to Amanda Otten before the season, because she said she told me she was looking ahead to that home MAC tournament, and I was like, oh, that's bold. And then we checked how it works, and I was like, well, okay, it's not that bold, still bold, but
Well, I'm very confident in the series I'm playing. That's Well, I was a little bit nervous about that. I'm confident they'll be playing in the tournament.
There we go.
Because
Boy, would that be a downer if they don't.
it would be a huge job. But I have a lot of faith in this team. They showed me that it's just such.
How many names
such
did they
a
get?
deep roster. Six. Yeah. I think the teams. If I had to guess, God, if I'm right on this, that'd be crazy. The 6 teams that I'd say will make it at this point are Ball State, BG, Western, the way that Eastern has been playing. I'd say Eastern. If NIU can kind of keep up staying where they're at, NIU, and then the 2 other teams I'd say would probably be Miami, and Ohio has been playing well, so I'll say Ohio. But anything's up for those last 4 spots are up for grabs because the locks at this point for me are BG, Ball State. Those are the locks. The other 4 are up for grabs. There'll be a lot of fighting for those spots. Western Michigan right now is somehow, some way they found another fantastic setter and have a great back row. I don't know how that keeps happening. Coaching, but Leah Richmond is going to be MAC setter of the year in her first year starting in the MAC because Amanda Otten got injured, and she's incredibly talented. The back row is incredibly talented, incredibly disciplined because of that great coaching. They just don't have the offensive weapons that they had last year and that they typically have. Maybe they get better as the year goes on, but they probably make the tournament. I just don't know what kind of damage they can do in it because BG and Ball State just have such great offenses that at some point that back row is going to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think I from everything that I've seen, you're the expert. I really do think that Northern Illinois series just tells you what this team is, what they can do, and the kind of run they're going to be able to make. What actually happens in the tournament, we'll see. But I fully expect to see them playing in that tournament as well. So That'll be an exciting one to watch ahead to. But Bowling Green's next series for volleyball is hosting Ball State this week, the 16th and the 17th.
This is by far the toughest start she went. Northern Illinois, good team again, followed by Ball State, followed by Western,
Sandwiched by Toledo.
Sandwiched by Toledo, yes. And then there's another series against Miami, and I'd say that series also might be tough too because I do think that Miami squad is better than they've been given credit for so far, because they were beyond Kent were the worst team in the MAC last season. So I think they deserve some more credit than they're getting right now.
As far as coverage of this next competition against Ball State, make sure to check out bgfalconmedia.com for written recaps and photo galleries, as well as checking out at BG_FMSN on Twitter X and BG Falcon Media on whatever platforms you get your news from or information from to keep up with everything going on there. That's going to do it for us for volleyball. We're going to move on because a lot of things going on the soccer pitches. We're going to start with the women's team, who extends an unbeaten streak, but despite the relative success, it feels unglamorous. Henry, take us away a little bit.
Yeah, so 2-5 now on that's 2 wins, no losses, 5 draws, 1-1 draw today against Miami, in conference play. And they broke the record that they broke today that I mentioned in pregame, 12 straight games unbeaten. That's going back more than 2 months to an Illinois loss at Cochran Stadium, but Steve was undefeated on the road and undefeated through 7 games in the MAC. But it was an interesting game today. It was kind of a story of 2 halves. Bowling Green came out extremely slow in the first half, just very sloppy, gave up a goal early on, and they were playing from behind going into the second half. And then Chris Fox made a lot of adjustments, especially on the defensive side. Put 3 in the back line instead of their traditional 4. Brought in Neagats. We saw Quinn O'Neill with a lot of minutes in the second half, and they managed to really ramp up the energy in the second half. Earned a penalty off of a handball on Miami that Emi Butera scored early in the second half, and then they kind of fought towards the end of the second half to get that game-winning goal, and I mean they got pretty close. Ella Kane off the crossbar on what was pretty much a wide open shot. It was, I think it might have maybe caught a little bit of a divot in the pitch or something like that. But they were that close. They were that close to earning those 3 points. And I think one thing Fox emphasized in post conference was, just maybe cleaning up the beginning of the game, starting off well. Because the way they played in the second half, they played like the team that we've seen. They played like the team that you want to see, and that team that they play like late in the halves. It seems like that's the case in a lot of these games, especially what we've seen the past few games. That the team that they play like in the second half is a team that is a MAC winning potential team. That's just what they're aiming for, is to just kind of push that together and form it all into one whole 90-minute game.
I mean, obviously things to clean up, but I mean, it seems like they found the formula to at least compete. Again, it's 12 games now, unbeaten. Is there still do you think they have a big not able to win problem right now? When you look at the standings, conference points, Bowling Green sits in 6th with 11. They're 2-0-5 conference record. The only other team close on those ties that's got a comfortable number of conference points, Eastern Michigan has 4 ties, and they have 10 points, 1 point behind BG in conference. Yeah. Massachusetts also has 10 points. Do you have any concern that they might miss spot in the tournament just to being too good at competing and tying?
Yeah, it's tough to say at this point. I mean, they're currently 6th in conference standings, even though they are undefeated at 11 points. So that kind of gives you a perspective into, okay, they're a bubble team at this point. But the one positive that they have going for them is the remaining parts of their schedule is pretty much as easy as it gets going towards their final few games, besides the game in Buffalo, which is going to be a tough one. Games against Akron at home, Ball State at home, should be games that they're favored in. But again, another thing that looking at is Northern Illinois is maybe not a game that's as easy as they might thought it would be going into the year, considering Northern Illinois just broke Western Michigan's 29-game unbeaten conference streak when they went to DeKalb on Thursday and beat Western 1-0. So that's going to be another game that's interesting. And just the thing with the MAC in general of women's soccer is just how close all the teams are together. There's 9, you're looking at the standings right now. It seems like the only team that's really out of it is maybe Akron and maybe Central. Other than that, Toledo and OU are kind of on that second lower tier, and then everyone else above that, Eastern, Northern Illinois, UMass, Bowling Green, Ball State, Miami, Kent State, are all kind of on that mid tier where they're all going to be fighting for those tournament spots. So anything can happen. One thing that I will say is the team is missing Taylor Green. I think that was pretty prevalent in this game with the defensive adjustments that they had to make to compete with Miami. And I think their ability to adjust, and we'll see what formation they use against Northern, but the way they played in the second half makes it a little bit more promising. But just getting used to playing without Taylor Green is something that they've been doing this past week, and they're maybe they're gonna have to figure some things out if they're gonna want to get towards like a mid-tier conference tournament spot in like 3rd or 4th.
So you said they're on the bubble there. What do you think they need to go like at minimum to make the tournament?
What do you mean? Like
record-wise? Record-wise. Because, is it possible, let's say, hypothetically, they draw the rest of these games? Do you think they'd miss the tournament with an unbeaten record?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's 1 point for a draw, right? 1 point for a draw. So with 2 wins and 5 draws right now, you get 3 per win, right? Okay. So they have 11. I don't think they would make it if they drew every single one of these last games, especially it would depend on how UMass and Eastern play. But UMass is 3-3-1 right now, and they're they have 4 less draws than BG has, and they're 1 point behind. So that gives you a perspective into just kind of how a play style like this can kind of hurt you.
So I guess the question would be, how many wins do you think it's going to take?
I think it's going to take at least 2.
Okay.
I think they're going to need to possibly remain undefeated the rest of the season, maybe a little drop 1. But I think they need to beat Ball State and they need to beat Akron. I think those 2 ways that Cochran see.
Not much margin for error at this point.
No, not a lot of margin for error, no.
That's just it's kind of crazy to be unbeaten in conference play and you're faced with like no margin in there. Like you didn't really do anything wrong.
Yeah.
You just didn't do enough, I guess, in some cases.
That's how crazy they're going to do.
One thing they're doing wrong is they're not scoring. It seems more than one goal again. They're not scoring the ball. I mean, like that it's the stretch in the beginning of I don't know, this is crazy reference, but in Ted Lasso, the start of season 2, they're drawing every single game, and that's how this team feels for me. Every single game, it feels like I check the score and it's like, oh,
do we need a belief sign and work?
We do need a belief sign locker room. We're down 0-1 in every single game that I have watched or I've been watching the score for, and then it seems like in the last like 20 minutes or so of the game, they got a goal off a free kick or a corner kick or something, and they essentially saved the tie.
Mm-hmm.
And when does that change where we're not either not allowing that initial goal, like you said, typically in the first half of a game, or we're actually managing to score that second or possibly third goal?
Yeah, well, the one thing that has helped them in the past games, Ella Kane just returned from her injury. She returned against Eastern. She played 42 minutes in that game. And I mean, she looked like the player she was, if not better than she was at the beginning of the season. And she looked even better today, 4 shots. And I mean, she could have easily scored 2 goals. Like she had one that was a wide open that she made 2 moves off of multiple defenders to get an open shot and just wasn't able to finish. And then she had a couple other solid shots on goal early in the second half. So she was the main powerhouse on offense for the women's team. And she's going to be a little bit of a boost to the offense as the season goes on. So that's one thing that will help them. But yeah, I mean, it's just tough because of how tightly knit all of these teams are. That's why you're seeing all these draws is, going on the road to a place like Ypsilanti isn't a place where teams have consistently gotten wins, even the best teams in the MAC. Teams like Buffalo. Buffalo lost to Eastern in Ypsilanti. And then the similar thing with Western, like Western lost in DeKalb to NIU. And that's just the thing where any result can happen at any given time. And the thing is just trying to get into the MAC tournament.
What is a matchup in the schedule, either upcoming or maybe even a little bit deeper into the season, that you feel this is a real opportunity to like get a good win and build off of that and just gain a little momentum from it?
I mean, the game against NIU on Thursday night is going to be big because that's a team that if you beat them, that's another team that you're going to have to worry about a little less when it comes down towards those points in the MAC tournament. And that's a team that has proven that they can beat good teams in DeKalb. So going there and making a statement would be huge for this team. And then the other game is Buffalo. Going to Buffalo in a couple weeks is going to be a huge game for this team. Considering Buffalo is the second best team in the MAC. They were predicted to be as such. Just going there is already tough because of the travel. But that's going to be a game where if you can even, get a 2-1 win or anything like that, sneak one out, that would be huge for this team.
I'm interested that you don't say, and I guess he put you to, pick ones, and you could pick any of the games, but I guess I'm really interested that UMass being right where BG is in points, only 10 to BG's 11, and being the regular season finale. I feel like that game could end up being super significant.
That's gonna be a big game. Also, that could be similar to, I don't know if you remember last year there was a similar situation where there was like 4 or 5 teams fighting for the last couple spots, and Bowling Green went to Kent, which was one of those teams that was fighting, and they lost 4-2. But that could be one of those similar situations where the winner of that game could end up going to the tournament. So, yeah, that would be another big game.
Despite being a team that has had a lot of draws, which I think many people rightfully think are kind of a boring or unsatisfying result, definitely room for a lot of late season fireworks here in the MAC, as it's just such a tight pack there of teams that are on the bubble. So definitely be exciting to watch. Bowling Green will next get to action on the pitch in DeKalb against Northern Illinois on October 16th with an 8 p.m. kickoff since it's Central Time, so 7 p.m. there, but it'll be 8 p.m. for us here, and we'll have coverage of that at bgfalconmedia.com. As always, check that out to stay up to date with that game. I want to talk about the men's soccer team. a rough patch. You start 0-2 in conference play. You drop a game you shouldn't have dropped against Cleveland State, I think, by all accounts. And going to Cochran Stadium on senior night, on Friday night, I was skeptical. And, they go into the game. First of all, Trace Terry, Amir Adidic, and Andrew Schaefer being honored pregame. The three seniors through the team deserve mention there. But they start playing. And in particular, the Bradley goal in the first half, I want to say around like the 31st minute or so, comes off of a pretty, blown one-on-one by Raiko Bodurov on the Bradley striker, whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce, and ends up giving up the goal, gives them a pretty free opportunity against Jason Ball. And when that happened, I kind of felt the energy in Cochran deflating a little bit. There was a lot of like, oh boy, here we go again, and any team on a cold streak, I think, goes through that. And then you go into the second half, and that Trace Terry goal is one of the greatest goals I've ever seen. And specifically, the impact of it was so much more senior night for Trace Terry, and to be assisted by Raiko Bodurov, who, very quickly shook off, the struggles of the first half. Because, it was an ugly first half of soccer, Henry. You want to talk about it more?
Yeah, the first half is what we've kind of seen from the team. What we saw in those two games, I think most notably at Cochran Stadium, that, I think a lot of the fans watched, was the 3-0 losses against Bellarmine and Evansville, where, the team, it wasn't necessarily maybe they were playing poorly, they were just getting, they had just a couple mistakes that led to goals. And that was the case with Bodurov in the first half. But the difference was in the second half, when they came out and, you could tell they knew they weren't out of the game, and they brought the energy. And the Terry goal, I think, really was what propelled them over the top, because of just the energy that provided. That would probably be up there for, if they had like a MVC goal of the year, I think that would probably be up there. It doesn't really get any better than that. The team just looked like the old team that we saw last year in the second half, I think, and that's a confidence builder. And, this team is not out of contention, right? Currently sixth in the MVC standings out of 8 teams. 6 teams make the tournament, so all they have to do is just maintain and try to get into the tournament at this point. I think, a perfect season is definitely out of the realm, but Evansville proved last year that any team can win the tournament, as long as you get in, right?
Yeah, and I think, we talk about momentum, talked about it, with the Battle of I-75 yesterday, and with that Evansville team last year, it's just so important, and teams can do things far beyond expectation when they have that going for them. I can't think of a way to build a much better momentum than the way that Bradley game went. Again, it's senior night. Your guys are going to want to win. Guys are out there playing for each other and for their seniors who have, given their 4 years usually, given their time and their effort to this program to, build it and develop it. And just for the players, for it to happen for two, all felt really, really pivotal. You know what I mean? Senior night, it's going to be huge. Trace Terry and Andrew Schaefer and Amir Adidic, they're going to be pumped about that. Really big to get a win for Jason Ball in the goal. Raiko Bodurov, learning that he can rally or, solidify that, hey, I'm fine. We're going to make mistakes. We can rebound for them. Trace Terry, another brace, which he's done now 3 meetings with Bradley and 3 2-goal games. Yeah. I love that. It's just so... Yeah. The consistency in particularly scoring on them is really funny to me, but also impressive.
Yeah, I think just going back to Raiko, I think he's kind of a star in the making. I think you're seeing it, just how good he is off the bench and just the presence that he provides. He's getting better and better every game. He had 2 assists, and he made the big thing that I saw is that he made the mistake in the first half, and he bounced back from it. He bounced back from it by having what was maybe one of his best career games that he's had in his career. And I think that shows, not just testament to his work ethic and a testament to what he could possibly be as a player in coming years and what he already is as a player for this team and the value that he brings in the midfield, and a section that they need help. They need help in the midfield. They need help in offensive chance creation wherever they can get it. And he's provided that. And he's going to be crucial for them going forward as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah, and I think I kind of got this vibe. I'm sure you did too. In hearing from Trace Terry and Coach Eric Nichols post game after that game, when both of them asked to talk about him, just the way they talk about it, I think you get the sense that they feel that way too. I mean, I think they know and can tell, and obviously they should be able to because they're in the locker room with him. They know who they're playing with. I think you can really tell that that's the vibe. He's got the stuff. I think you're dead on about star in the making, just kind of slowly figuring himself out. And I mean, what a performance after that. Like again, after that first half, I was blown away by the second half.
Yeah, and I mean, I think another thing that Coach Nichols hit on in the press conference was just their schedule that they've had in these past 2 weeks. They've played 7 games in the past 21 days, which is just too many games. I
think that's exactly what he said.
That's exactly what he said, I think. And I mean, you saw that. I think you saw that in the Cleveland State game, just the fatigue that was kind of getting to them. And I think coming out and winning that game against Bradley when you have more than a week off before you have to head to Des Moines to take on Drake is it's huge for them, right? It was kind of a make or break game in terms of what they were going to be able to do the rest of the season. And I think just getting this win provides the confidence that they need going into what seems like a pretty tough schedule coming up.
Yeah. Fortunate thing, like you said, being the fact that 6 teams make the Missouri Valley Conference tournament despite it being such a small conference. That was kind of odd to me also. Like when Bowling Green started playing in the Valley, I don't know, it feels like a lot of teams for a conference of the size there. Like only 2 get left out.
Yeah, then you maybe shrink it down the floor.
At that point, like why don't you seed it but still just like have all the teams?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, either have all the teams or like
it feels like a weird.
It's kind of like a Sunbelt thing where you do the gauntlet essentially.
Do not break the gauntlet.
Oh man, why? The gauntlet's great.
In soccer, that would not work.
Regardless, though, I think senior night just showed a program getting back on the right foot and a lot of momentum. Not everything went perfectly for them, but yeah. And actually, I should mention too, Bennett Painter. One of your Trace Terry, Bennett Painter, the goal scorers, the guys you're going to talk about all the time. Both of them being able to connect with the net and just get a confidence game in, I think is super valuable going into a game against Drake, which is going to be a test.
Yeah, just in general, the remaining schedule for BG is pretty tough. I mean, if you look at the schedule right now, they already played the 2 top teams, which Evansville and Belmont are sitting at the top of the standings right now. But you have some teams down there like Drake, UIC, who are looking really good. They look really good in non-conference. Western has had an interesting start to the year. They're 3-8-2 overall, but once you get down to the MVC tournament time, as long as they can they're going to be one of the favorites regardless. And what the thing is with that, Bowling Green has to go to Drake. That's a travel to Des Moines. They have to go to Kalamazoo to play them. Then UIC comes to BG on Halloween. So it's not going to get easy for them. They're going to have to pull out a couple of these results. They're going to have to get a couple of draws if they can, draw one of these teams, draw Western and Kalamazoo, draw Drake and Des Moines, and then earn that victory against UIC on Halloween. And we'll see what happens once they get down to the season finale at NIU and DeKalb.
And it's really interesting too, just looking at that next game being Drake, because Drake's record says that they're the Bowling Green women's soccer team of the Missouri Valley Conference. 5-0-6 overall, 0-0-3 in conference. So that's something that always makes me chuckle, I guess, about soccer, just the number of ties that you happen to see. And regardless, I think that's going to be a good measuring stick.
Yeah.
Yes.
A
team that's competitive. They haven't been dropping games, but a lot of ties. I think as a Bowling Green team, you should be going in there thinking we can beat them with the expectation of a tie.
Yes, Drake is a fantastic defensive team. I mean, they've allowed 1 goal in their past 6 games.
Wow.
They've had 3 0-0 ties, 2 1-0 wins. So going in there and scoring just period is going to be a challenge. So, I mean, we'll see.
It'll be definitely interesting to look at. As always, bgfalconmedia.com will be your home for coverage of upcoming Falcon Athletics action, and in particular the men's soccer team. We'll have a recap on there from their matchup against Drake, kicking off at 8:30 next Saturday, October 18th. That's going to wrap up men's soccer for us. The last of the big five, as I call them in this time of year, is the hockey team. And unfortunately, we're not going to spend a lot of time. Not a super eventful weekend for them. They opened their season with a series against the Niagara Purple Eagles, which is a fun mascot name, by the way. The Purple Eagles, add a little something to just the Eagles, make it more interesting. But I digress. They fell to 0-2, being swept in the series. The first night, the Purple Eagles, beat them by a 2-0 margin. Always kind of unfortunate, unable to get on the board, but it's just the way it broke. It's the first game of the season for you after an exhibition against Robert Morris, so you don't exactly have lofty expectations. I would have to talk about it more with our hockey expert, Ben, to get his take on it. I think in the early going in a non-conference, you're not sweating the result, but 5 is also a lot of goals to let in.
I think it's notable Cole Moore got pulled from goal in the third period. So you had the backup goalie get some time, which that's pretty early in the season to make a switch like that. I don't know how much that tells going forward. That'd be a Ben question, but that's interesting to me at least.
And to me, that's a loaded switch too, because you're getting pelted. You give up 4 in the second frame, and I know you've got a period left at the end. But on some point, if you're willing, he likes to experiment with the lines and the playing time as well. And I think, frankly, you might just see an opportunity there to get another goalie quality minutes. Yeah. And so, I think the biggest takeaway is that there's not that much to take away. You can't read too much into
it's early in the season.
First series on the road, non-conference opponent. But they'll be very interesting to watch. As always, Dennis Williams opened his career at BGSU with a really strong first season, including a big-time win over Michigan Tech in the first round of the CCHA tournament. Something that I think the fans, BG being a big hockey town, will only look for him to capitalize on and improve on this coming year. But in the meantime, for that, Bowling Green's next action will be back home at the Slater Family Ice Arena this Friday, October 17th, with a tip-off at 7:07 p.m. And as usual, Bowling Green, or FMSN, Falcon Media Sports Network, will have coverage of that event as we do with all home hockey events. Written coverage on bgfalconmedia.com, as well as the broadcast on WBGU 88.1 FM right here. So tune in here for that as well. Ben Korak will be on there, I'm sure. As for hockey, that's basically all that we've got on that for now. Like I said, there will be a lot more to see. To wrap up, just because we have a few minutes, I told Tyler this before the show. I just want to talk about it because I want to say 2 weeks ago now, Ben and I, maybe even 3, Ben and I, or no, I think it was with you and Lucas. We discussed hot seats.
We did.
And a name that we kept mentioning was James Franklin, fresh on the heels of blowing another big game, a whiteout against high-ranked.
There's no way he would do that again. Right?
Surely he would blow a game following that against conference bottom feeder UCLA with an interim coaching staff.
There's no way he'd do it again after that, right?
Okay, he blew the UCLA game. Surely he wouldn't then lose at home to Northwestern, the Northwestern Wildcats. Shout out from Bowling Green.
The decorated.
Surely he would have a Big Ten win at this point. Because I'm pretty sure that they don't.
I'm astonished.
They
have nothing to do with us truly.
14 days ago, they had, I think it was a 10-point advantage over Oregon. Like the number 3 in the country at that point.
Leading by 10, you're saying?
Yeah, they were leading by 10. I think Penn State was ranked like top 5 in the country.
I think they were like
they were in there, I think.
Maybe I have it. Maybe it's Penn
3 versus 6.
It was 3. Penn State was 3. That was 14 days ago. They're unranked, and James Franklin doesn't have a job.
And they're starting quarterbacks out for the year.
Yeah.
Well, he was just
think about that. Penn State paid James Franklin $50 million to
get a happy away.
$50 million. Jimbo Fisher still has the biggest payout, $76 million.
Now, I do think it is important to acknowledge that for the time, I think there's a different lens to look at every coach through, depending on the context of when they were hired. Do you look at the Scott Loeffler hire as a failure or a success?
Success.
It's a resounding success. For Penn State,
Yeah.
You fire him, you can't drop 3 Big Ten games in a row. We know the standard, but for where that program was when Franklin got there,
That Penn State was ranked top 10 in the country at some point during the year, 10 straight seasons under James Franklin, and it wasn't enough.
wow.
Like, think of how there was like 5 programs in the country that would not take that.
As the Big Ten becomes more and more, honestly, the predominant football conference.
Yeah.
They're like slowly but surely over the SEC. SEC will always be like a close second, like the Big Ten was to the SEC. But like those RZA switch in the SEC, it is cutthroat of how quickly a head coach can be fired, how quickly a coaching staff could be forced to leave town. I mean, every single time that a coach loses in the SEC, it immediately gets started about, all right, he's done for the season.
Sickles still had that job at Wisconsin.
Billion.
The Big Ten was not like that. I'm wondering now that the Big Ten is like, they're becoming that top football conference over the SEC now. Like, is that going to become the way of doing it? Are you going to mark cutthroat?
I mean, considering I just got reminded Wisconsin lost 37-0 to Iowa.
I was a sleeper. Don't sleep.
37-0, and you still have a job at Wisconsin.
Yeah. I do.
Well, I mean, Ohio State head coach Ryan Day has a job still. I mean, they won a national championship, which is phenomenal for the program.
Ryan Day has spent all but one game in his career ranked inside the top 10 in the country.
Yeah. And he lost 3 years in a row to Michigan.
I know.
Which is
but he has a national championship. James Franklin won college playoff.
Considered that season a success because they did nothing but beat Ohio State. And that's the mentality with
like different though. That's the best rivalry in sports.
Absolutely, but like I feel like you are more forgiving in the Big Ten of your coaches. I'm saying now that this Franklin fired, like, are we going to see more of that? Like, if
I think it all depends on the program, and it depends on
the expectations. And you were already on pace to be more forgiving of a coach, even like per your own standard. Once Ryan Day won a national championship at Ohio State, because I mean they're solidified. Well, sure, maybe it saved his career. Would he have gotten fired if they didn't make the playoff run? Maybe. He could have gone either, but, that shows you, okay, if they had fired Ryan Day, like mid-season, if they fired him after the loss to Michigan.
You want to know the ironic part about this James Franklin firing? Because of the way the Big Ten redid all their scheduling with all the new Pac-12 teams that shouldn't be in the Big Ten, Penn State was not listed as one of the perennial opponents for Ohio State. They're not in that bubble of 2 or 3 teams. So next year, Penn State doesn't face Ohio State. James Franklin gets fired the year before he has a year. Their schedule next year
is going to be
one of the easiest things I have ever seen.
Well, the reason I say Big Ten schools, I think Big Ten schools are much more forgiving of their coaches than they should be. And SEC schools are probably much more cutthroat with their firings. Because, listen, I know he's coming in to replace Nick Saban, but DeBoer lost to Vanderbilt last year, and every single Alabama fan was ready to fire him immediately.
Penn State next year versus Marshall, at Temple versus Buffalo, at Maryland, at Michigan, at Northwestern, versus Minnesota, versus Purdue, versus Rutgers, versus USC, versus Wisconsin, at Washington. James Franklin got fired the year before he got to face that.
Oh my gosh. I think
that's ironic. Because that's the year he could have made a run.
And now the new head coach is going to look like amazing. You turned this program around, and that this is the schedule.
In wrapping up this discussion, I simply want to close with a little bit of food for thought for the three of you, that maybe the national scrutiny that Penn State got after trailing at the half against Bowling Green at home was the beginning of the end for James Franklin. So shout out Scott Leffler.
Shout out to
Bowling Green. Shout out to Harold Fannin.
Yep.
And with that, that's going to do it for us here from the Zig Zone. As always, I'm your host, Holden Ruck. joined by Andrew Smith, Henry Costco, and Tyler Kavlitz from the Falcon Media Sports Network. As always, check out bgfalconmedia.com anywhere and everywhere you prefer to keep up with all of our content and coverage of Falcon Athletics. That's going to do it for us here. Have a good night.